Whenever you're on the internet and you're on these various forums, you see people who want to treat their car like it's a $1 million hypercar. And they want to tuck it away for the winter, not touch it, don't even look at it until it's at least 45 degrees outside. I know, we all know someone like that. Maybe you are, if you're listening to this, maybe you are that guy. But Brian, do you think it's worth bothering with that? I mean, it sounds like the answer is no. The answer is just grow up and drive your car.
Yeah. If you can't drive your car in the winter, you don't got the right car.
Oh man,
you must have a Nissan.
Must have a Nissan. Well, the Nissan guys can't really drive at any time, can they?
No.
No. How is that Nissan going that you're working on?
Oh, it's terrible.
From Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, this is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
So I thought that I was done talking about the Jeep Wrangler 4xe a couple of weeks ago. I thought that. You even thought that too. But no, I'm not done. There's another recall. Yes, another one. I'm not even kidding. I wish I was. And here's the thing. It's not even related to the other 3 recalls. It's a whole new recall, entirely unrelated. So, man, this is what happens when I recommend to someone I know personally to buy a car. This is what happens. This is precisely what happens. We're going to discuss that, by the way. That's almost an entirely new recall every week. That's crazy. Anyway, by the way, we're also going to discuss General Motors and Allison Transmissions. They're having a nasty breakup, and it's gotten petty now. Yes, it's gotten petty. What happens when 2 gigantic corporations get petty with each other? We'll talk about exactly that. And OBD1 Kenobi, friend of the show, official show mechanic. Well, he was formerly the official show mechanic, and then he bought an EV and he was excommunicated. But I think he has redeemed himself, and he is returning to the show in the third half of the program. So we're going to get to all of that. We're going to get to some of your car sounds. Oh, and how you can win a Automotive ADHD key tag sticker. It's not even a giveaway. It's not like a contest. I'm just literally giving these away to people who want them. So we'll discuss all of that and more on this edition of the show. Remember, if you are joining me on the radio, this show, of course, happens all across Southern Colorado on the radio, but you can also catch it on the internet. And if you do watch the show regularly on the internet, or regularly you watch it on the radio. I know, that's how that works. If you do catch it on the radio regularly, give me a hand and go check it out online too, and subscribe to it online. YouTube, Facebook, Spotify. If you listen on Spotify, make sure to give it a rating as well. 6 stars. Blow it out of the water with 6 stars. That really helps a lot. That helps grow the show, and it's totally free. It doesn't cost you anything. So go ahead and check that out online. Of course, I want to thank the radio stations, too, who make this show a possibility. And the other week, I had a dinner with some of the folks at KLZR. They had a little bit of a get-together, and what a great station with a great crew, by the way. I do want to say that. I love all the stations we're on, and the folks at every one of them are fantastic. So now, before we get to any of that, if you follow the show, you know that I built a 1,000 square foot garage shop garage, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it a shop. I'll be a little pretentious. I'll be fancy. I'll call it a shop. And you know that I also did a bunch of work the other week, sealing the floors, doing this really nice concrete epoxy. And it's only been a matter of weeks, and I already ruined the nice garage floor. I want you to look at this. If you're on video. Go ahead and take a peek at that. What you're seeing right there, I'll describe it for our radio viewers, and that is a rubber mark. That is a rubber mark from a tire, and quite a. You can actually tell there was some speed that happened with that rubber mark. And actually, it gets worse. There were rubber marks, 2 of them. That's actually pretty bad. That's not just gently chirping the tires coming in. And look at that too. Look, there's the culprit. You can see the culprit right there. Look at it. It's almost like, you know, a dog, you have a pet dog, and it makes a mess on the floor, and it sort of just sheepishly is looking at you like the dog knows it messed up. It knows it did something wrong. That's that look on that Honda right there. Look at it. Look at that sheepish look on there. Anyway, so this, I actually promise you. So here was the floor before. Beautiful. And here's the floor after. And I tried getting those rubber marks off. It doesn't work. So anyway, what happened there was somebody, who built this garage, probably me. Granted, I didn't build it myself, but I told the people who were doing the concrete where I wanted stuff. And there's this apron that goes in front of the garage door. And they're like, what angle should we make it at? I'm like, I don't know, make it a pretty shallow one. And I kind of, said, that's fine. I clearly didn't remember when I told them to do that how low my Honda is. So what happened there, you see that photo, the car got high centered on the apron where it goes into the actual garage floor. Like I literally got the car high centered and I got the car stuck. And that was me trying to unstick the car. Now, what I should have done as soon as I got the car stuck is I should have gotten out and put some 2x4s under the back wheels, and that would have been the end of it. Instead, I just, let the VTEC do its thing. The car did, for the record, get unstuck, and I ruined my nice new floors already. So, you know what? If anything, it's a good thing because now my floors are ruined. And now I don't have to care about it because I will say the floors were a little too pretty when I started. It's like, it's supposed to be a workshop and I kind of didn't want to do any work in here because I'm like, oh man, but the floor is so beautiful. It's shiny. I can see my reflection in this. This is a beautiful floor. Well, anyway, that's all gone. So, yeah. Go figure. Yes, I know. I built the shop custom to my specs and I didn't build it so that I could actually get my car inside without. This is what happens, man. I do this stuff so you don't have to. That's what happens. That's exactly what happens. So anyway, you can criticize me for that in the comments online on YouTube and Facebook. But anyway, so one thing I want to also talk about here before we wrap up the first segment is, have you seen the Coca-Cola TV ad, the one with the semi-trucks? And it's a Christmas ad. It's the Coca-Cola Holidays Are Coming ad, which, by the way, need I remind you, they ran this on the 3rd of November. Seems like the Christmas stuff gets ran earlier and earlier and earlier. I was doing some grocery shopping a few weeks back before Halloween. And the Halloween exhibit in the grocery store with all the Halloween candies and stuff was already gone. And in its place was Christmas stuff. And this was pre-Halloween, right? This is the world we live in now, all right? And so Coca-Cola ran this ad, and the reason I'm talking about it is because it's AI generated. Yes, this has caused some controversy. This has stirred up criticism and hate, rightfully so, by the way. This is, major companies need to know that consumers don't want AI slop like this. By the way, for me, as someone who works professionally in media. I know it's funny me saying that and then doing this show. That doesn't match. But as someone who works in the media industry as my day job, okay, this bugs me for one, because you're Coca-Cola, you got all this money. What's the point in AI generating the ad just to generate some buzz because people hate it? I don't know. But the reason this is automotive in nature, I guess truck motive in nature, is because somebody figured out that the AI-generated truck keeps moving axle positions. So the AI they use to generate this ad, and there's the Coca-Cola semi-truck driving down the snowy road. Every single shot, the axles of the truck are in a different configuration. They're in a different spot. So here, check this out. We'll do this on video as well. So if you take a look at it now, I'm going to run this without audio because Coca-Cola has very well-paid lawyers. So we're going to skip around here. There's Santa Claus drinking a Coke and pushing a little toy truck down a road. And now it's a full-size semi-truck. There's some polar bears in it, some penguins. All right, so we're seeing the semi-truck, and it's actually a convoy with some other semis. All right, and then there's some cute animals because you have to have it. Now look at the axles right there, right? Nope, hold on. Let's go back. So right here, this semi-truck, all right, has no rear axle, and it has a box on the back, not even a trailer, but just a box on the back hanging off, like a third of it's hanging off the back of the truck, and it has 3 rear axles. So now let's skip ahead here. Okay, so now it has no rear axle on the tractor, but it has 2 rear axles on the trailer. But is it really a trailer if there's nothing there? Anyway, I want to show you another interesting thing on this. So we're coming up on a break here, but somebody did a graphic that actually showed all of the axle placements during the entire ad, and I want you to guess before the break how many different axle configurations you think this had. And spoilers, it's probably not enough. You're probably not guessing high enough. We'll be right back. You're listening to Automotive ADHD.
He brushes his teeth with 5W30. Matt West is on Automotive ADHD.
Only full synthetic. I don't use any of the conventional. I don't use the synthetic blend. Only full synthetic 5W30, as I could barely say synthetic apparently. But hey, thanks for joining me here on the show. 17 minutes after the top of the hour, you are listening to the correct car show. Before the break, I was talking about the Coca-Cola AI-generated Christmas ad that grinds my gears for all of the wrong reasons. And apparently it is grinding some gears and maybe some ring and pinion gears and axles. The axles can't really figure out exactly what they're doing. So, well, I want you to guess. Before the break, I told you to guess how many different axle configurations are seen in that commercial. And I'll tell you the answer here in just a minute. But before we do that, I want you to get yourself a As Heard on the Automotive ADHD Show sticker. I've got one here on the back of my water bottle. I'm slacking because I don't think I do. I'm looking in my toolbox drawers here. I don't actually have one of the key tags on me right now because that would be handy for me to show you. But you can grab one of those as well. They're fantastic embroidered red key tags. I use them all the time. Helps get your keys out of your pocket. And you can get one of these. And you don't have to pay for it. It's very simple, actually. All you need to do is comment online on YouTube, Facebook, or Spotify. And last week, I said comment something to make Jim Miller... Well, not last week, because actually Jim Miller was the guest host last week. I was on the road. And I do want to thank Jim for being on the show. And really, as a reward for him for guest hosting my show, he did a nice job hosting the show. I want you to comment, nice Mustang. If you comment nice Mustang, Jim, or some derivative of that, compliment Jim on his Mustang. By the way, if you've been following along, you know why this is funny. But tell him, Jim, nice Mustang. I'm sure he will love it. I'm sure he will love it dearly. So do that, and then private message me on Facebook. If you comment and then private message me your address, because I have to know where to send the key tag and the sticker to. So because I can't give it to you unless I know where to send it to, obviously. So comment there, and then just jump over to the Facebook page and send me a message and with your address, and I'll get that shipped out to you as soon as I can. So anyway, do that. Now, like I said, before the break, we were talking about the Coca-Cola truck. Now, what number do you think is correct, right? Because this is AI we're talking about, so it could be 3, could be 4, 5 axle configurations, 6? Nope. Still higher. 10 axle configurations. Check this out here on the video if you're watching YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, and more. Someone broke this down and actually made a handy graphic here of the different axle configurations. And look, you don't even need to see this to know that they're ridiculous. They're completely ridiculous, nonsensical, impossible even, which is what we expect from AI. And this is all over the course of a 60-second advertisement. 10 different axle configurations over the course of a 60-second advertisement. This is the best that AI has to offer us. Now, I know there are people who are very pro-AI, and they are going to say something along the lines of, well, yes, right now AI is the worst it's ever going to get. And I hate to admit it, you're right. It's only going to get better. But that doesn't mean we should have it, for one, doing anything automotive related. For two, again, not even in an automotive sense. I just can't imagine why a multi-billion-dollar company like Coca-Cola would stoop this low. And it's just to generate buzz. I know it is. I know it's publicity. We're talking about it here. That publicity's working. But man, okay, like I think the last, hang on here, we'll switch back to that. The last axle configuration, like this one seems pretty reasonable-ish. Some of these are a bit fanciful. It actually did use the same one twice. So it actually did get it right twice. So, a broken clock is right twice a day, I guess. So there you go. So next time you need to, I guess maybe AI will learn. Maybe it'll learn. It will learn from these mistakes. And next time it will only do 11. That's actually higher than what it did. It'll only do 9 axle configurations next time. So, oh man. I can't believe it. Let me know your thoughts. I mean, I know most folks are really getting tired of the AI slop, as it's been called. But man, it just bugs me when you see it with a company that has the resources. They know they can do better, and they just don't want to. So, all right. Well, here's another thing I wanted to get to briefly before we discuss some stuff with OBD1 Kenobi. He's going to join me in the next segment. I think I'm actually pulling him away from some real legitimate paying work. So you better tune in the next segment for sure. We're gonna talk a little bit about winter car storage and what he thinks about it as a mechanic. And I think I have a feeling I already know what his opinion's going to be, but we're gonna find that out here in a little bit. But I did want to respond to a comment that someone sent me. They wrote into the show, and this was relating to a video I did a few months back about why the EV mandates ending is a good thing. So as you know, the president a few months back killed the EV mandates, okay? He also killed the EV tax credits, among other things, but the EV mandates themselves, the notion that governments around the world have decided to adopt arbitrary dates that, okay, all new cars must be EVs by 2030, by 2035, by 2032. There's just all this arbitrary stuff. And if you've listened to the show, I've talked about this before at length, and I've given you my thoughts on it. And of course, I think that, when you have these EV mandates, you actually are working against innovation. You're working, when you mandate a technology, you work against innovating in other technological spheres, right? And I guess in plain English, that means that if you mandate EVs, companies are going to make EVs. If you don't mandate them, okay, well, some consumers want to buy gas cars. Some people want to buy these EVs. Maybe there's a demand in hydrogen cars. There really isn't, but I'm just saying hypothetically. Or, okay, fine, we made up some sort of special magic fusion reactor, a pixie dust reactor that gets you 150 pixies per mile. I don't know, right? And that's the point. The point is a mandate is going to kill any innovation, because if you're Ford, Chevy, if you're Toyota, why are you going to invest in another technology if you have been mandated to only make one? And that other technology could be better than gas and EV combined. You just don't know. So that's been a trend. That's been something I've talked about before. And this guy online, he responded here, and I'll read his comment, okay? And this, again, is in response to my video about Trump killing the EV mandates. Now, he says, Jeremy Clarkson produced a little-known TV series called The Clarkson's Car Years during the Top Gear Dark Ages. And by the way, I've seen this series. I saw it a while back, and I believe it's on YouTube. It's a really cool series if you haven't checked it out and you want to see some classic Jeremy Clarkson, right? Now, he goes on to say the first episode was the rise and fall of the supercar, where his hypothesis was that cars were getting boring and mostly trending toward commuting, convenience, and luxury. Basically, all the high-end EV brands were just making, I said EV, all the high-end brands, this is pre-EV, all the high-end brands were just making livable GTs. This trend might kill supercars. Now, he says this was aired in June 2000. And then he goes on to say, odd. Mass-produced EVs did not exist in the early to mid-2000s. There were many failed pilot projects in the late 90s, so obviously EV mandates are to blame for enthusiast cars going away. So he's kind of critical of my position, saying that EV mandates are killing enthusiast cars. And he's saying enthusiast cars were already on the decline for 2 decades. Now, I have a thought on this, and I responded to him there, but I want to respond to him here on the show too. And I appreciate the comment and the dialogue on this because I think it's really cool when we can debate about this. But one of the things that the point that I need to make here is that he is not wrong that enthusiast cars have been on the decline since the 1990s, really. And since, of course, I'm a guy who loves his import cars. I love my S2000. I love all this, cool Japanese stuff. And that stuff really is a product of the bubble era in Japan, which ended in the late 90s. And yes, the S2000 came after that, but it was really developed at least during that period of time. And that period of time obviously led to things like the FD-RX-7, the R34 GTR, the Toyota Supra, the 4th gen, like all these cool cars, right? All these cars that the import guys love. And yes, we saw those go away pre-EV in many ways. We saw that. He is not wrong that enthusiast cars have been on a downward trend, and bland, boring crossovers and SUVs have cut drastically into their sales. Well, I agree with him up to a point, because the fact of the matter is, for one, the people buying bland, boring commuter cars, and of course the crossover revolution, which happened in the early 2000s into the teens, that I don't think killed the enthusiast car, because the people buying those cars were the people who were going to buy minivans before, and the people who were going to buy minivans before that were the people who were buying station wagons, if you go back through the decades. So this notion that SUVs and all these big luxury cars killed the enthusiast car. Yes, we saw a decline in enthusiast cars for sure, but I don't think that's necessarily a causational decline, because the people buying those cars weren't going to buy your low volume sports cars anyway. That's not, if they wanted a low volume sports car, they would have bought a low volume sports car. But to another point, my point being that EV mandates do kill enthusiast cars is because if you have an arbitrary mandate, okay, all cars must be EV by, let's just say 2030, right? All new cars. Well, we have to first define an enthusiast car, and that can vary, but I think a good common definition of an enthusiast car is something that is that's 3,500 pounds or less, ideally less, but I think 3,500 pounds is kind of the upper limit. That covers your Mustangs, your Camaros, your things like that. Something that is rear-wheel drive, and something that has a manual transmission. I think those 3 things define a generally accepted enthusiast car. Now, yeah, I know I'm leaving out something like my Subaru, which you can see here in the studio. It's all-wheel drive, but just for the sake of argument, right? Rear-wheel drive, 3,500 pounds or less, and a manual transmission. Okay, so, and that's leaving your engine up to choice. That could be a straight 6, that could be a V8, that can be a supercharged V8, that can be a turbo 4, a high-revving 4. We're not even going to discuss that, but just those 3 points. And if you have that, right, and you're a manufacturer, and you're making this already low-volume sports car, a lot of people aren't going to buy these things, then why, if there's an EV mandate, which basically kills that class of car, because by mandating that something must be an EV, then it can no longer have critically that manual transmission, and most EVs these days are all-wheel drive, and they're heavy, so you rule that out. Why, if you're Toyota, Nissan, or whoever, would you make and develop the next generation of an enthusiast car if you know this EV mandate's looming? So, hey, we'll talk about this and more after the break.
His motor skills are just fine. Automotive ADHD with Matt West.
And not just me. Joining me over the phone, Brian. Sometimes we call him OBD1 Kenobi on this program. And Brian, I actually called him and got him on the radio show mid-project. I think he's working on a customer car. Brian, what are you working on right now?
I am actually working on a R34 with a RB25 in it right now.
Okay, so a Nissan, which is I actually know, because I know that car. I was helping out a few weeks ago, and I helped push it, which I distinctly remember. For some reason, whenever I'm around Nissans, it involves me pushing them for some reason, and they're not even my cars, and I always end up pushing them. Why is that?
Well, it's a Nissan.
Well, there you go.
I've got a love-hate relationship with Nissans.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that is that's pretty much anyone. I'll have to check on if there's still a bounty on Carlos Ghosn, because if there is, we need to get on that. We need to cash that bounty on Carlos Ghosn from Nissan. But anyway, so Brian, I'm giving you a call here on the show because I want to get your mechanic's perspective on a couple of things. Now, to introduce folks who aren't familiar with you, I mean, you've been on the show a number of times before, but you are a mechanic by trade. You do this for a living, and you've done this for quite a while, going on a little over 10 years now, right?
Yeah, on and off as a hobby and kind of more doing it seriously now.
Well, yeah, and you've been a career mechanic for a good chunk of that too. So
10 years.
10 years career and obviously hobby outside of that, I would say, as well. As much of us. I mean, we all started out wrenching on cars when we were 16 or whatever, working on our first cars. But you've also turned this, you've worked for the big dealerships. You've done that. You've done that standard kind of tech career route. But you've also branched into your own business where you tune cars, and I should say make them run a little nicer than they ran before. We have to be careful how we say that because of reasons, but you make cars run better than how they started.
That's the hope, right?
Especially old cars and 240s. Granted, I think, we might have to, kind of reinstate your status as the show's official mechanic, because I believe we did revoke that when you bought an EV, but the statute of limitations, I don't know if it's quite passed yet, but it might be getting kind of close.
If it helps, I usually let my girlfriend drive it. I'm just driving my flat six slot Subaru around.
Hey, there we go.
Truck.
Oh man, we not right now. I think we'll have to save it for a later date. We'll have to actually maybe get you in studio on the show because there's a hilarious video and a hilarious story that goes along with your flat six Subaru and so what someone thought was a active shooter scenario. So we'll maybe leave that as a cliffhanger. We'll have listeners hang on to that thought. We'll maybe bring you back and share some of that later. Because that was funny. That was really funny. But Brian, what I want to talk about is a little bit of car storage. I mean, so we're getting through November here. Now here in Colorado, we've had this weirdly warm weather for some reason. I can't fathom why. I mean, we've gone through November and it's been like 70 degrees, and which I think is actually a sign of we're going to get it later. I think we're definitely going to get it later. But having said that, a lot of people are still thinking about storing their car, whether that's a fun weekend car, it's a project car, whatever. A lot of people want to get the fun project car off the road and store it for the wintertime. And Brian, just your gut reaction, what do you think, first of all, about storing cars?
I mean, I can't talk because I got so many cars stored around here, but I cycle them, I drive them. They're not really being stored. They're more just like waiting in the pit stop. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're in the queue. You just drive one and then you drive one the next day and then the next day. So, I mean, they're in constant use. Queuing it up. If you are on the internet at all, you often see a lot of posts. I'm on various forums like the S2000 forum, and you'll see around this time of the year dozens of posts of people saying, putting the car away for winter hibernation, sleep tight. And it's like, what? You don't drive your sports car in the snow? I thought everyone did that. Maybe that's just me, but you're just a rare breed, Matt. Yeah. It's, people are missing out on driving rear wheel drive convertibles in the snow. Now, granted, I don't think the majority of people share my taste in doing that. I actually have a second set of wheels and snow tires for the S2000, and you do not know. I don't think you really live until you drive a convertible in a blizzard. I really don't think. I think life begins once you do that. I have to admit, I've actually done that before. I've driven a convertible in the blizzard, and it was on purpose. Well, ideally it should be on purpose. You don't typically want to get caught in the blizzard not on purpose. But having said that, it always gets some great looks, by the way, when you take a convertible out.
in the snow. And by the way, the rule is if you own a convertible, this should be the rule. This is the rule we all must live by. But that rule ought to be if the car is in motion, the top is down, which I think is the correct way to own a convertible. And it doesn't matter what the temperature is or what the weather is doing. If the car is in motion, the top must be down. This is a law. We must all follow it. So Brian, now, having said that, there are people out there who maybe have a few more brain cells than you and me combined, and they do store their cars for the wintertime. And so, one of the biggest things, we were talking about this before the show, is fuel, specifically with fuel. What are your thoughts as a mechanic? Say you are, advising a customer who says, I don't know if I should store my Nissan for the winter. Oh, wait, my Nissan doesn't run. I'm storing it anyway. Sorry, we'll have to pick a different car. Nissan owners end up doing this by default, except it's sort of a year-round thing. So, but what would you advise a customer? What are your thoughts, just your gut reaction when it comes to like a fuel stabilizer, or is it worth just starting the car regularly? Should you drain the fuel? What would you say?
Personally, I don't think there's anything you would have to do. I mean, if you're only leaving it for the winter season and not like a whole year, I don't see any reason why you'd have to do anything to it unless it's, a project car with ethanol in it or something. But even then, I mean, the only thing you have to worry about is water intrusion. Mm-hmm. So personally, I would do absolutely nothing other than maybe make sure the snow doesn't get in places it shouldn't. Yeah.
Oh, the other thing I would say that is relevant, regardless of what you're doing, especially if you have a Nissan, is probably rodents. You probably do want to, set some mouse traps around, maybe, at least keep those out of the car. Because, as a guy who does wiring, that rodents like to eat wires. That's for sure.
Certain kinds. I actually don't see that much rodent damage. I usually see it on Volkswagens.
Was that a subtle jab at Volkswagens? Are their wires a little extra tasty? Maybe.
I don't know what you're talking about, but they probably go good with some sauce. At least some my
sauce.
sake, though.
Does it put a little dielectric grease on there when you eat the wires?
Yeah, the rats are like, delicious.
Oh man. So generally, I think, I like I was saying, whenever you're on the internet and you're on these various forums, you see people who want to treat their car like it's a $1 million hypercar, and they want to tuck it away for the winter, not touch it, don't even look at it until it's at least 45 degrees outside. And I know we all know someone like that. Maybe you are, if you're listening to this, maybe you are that guy. But Brian, what do you think it's worth bothering with that? I mean, it sounds like the answer is no. The answer is just grow up and drive your car.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can't drive a car in the winter, you don't got the right car.
Oh man,
you must have a Nissan.
Must have a Nissan. Well, the Nissan guys can't really drive at any time, can they?
No.
No. How is that Nissan going that you're working on?
Oh, it's terrible. We're right now. I'm cutting out all these old coolant lines, trying to prepare for our new intake manifold. This guy wants a bigger turbo. He's getting a bigger turbo.
Oh man. Well, if the car's not broken, it will be. That's just sort of a Nissan rule, in my opinion. Why do I get stuck with pushing other people's Nissans? I don't know. I'm probably being too nice. But hey, Brian, thanks for joining me here on the show. I appreciate the honest advice. Just drive your car. If you've got a winter car and if you've got a car that you want to store for the winter, just drive it. Have some fun with it. At least start it. Brian, thanks for joining me here on Automotive ADHD.
Absolutely, Matt.
He can't drive 55, not when his car is still on jack stands. This is Automotive ADHD with Matt West.
Well, it's not actually just because of that, but also probably because, I'm not as cool as Sammy Hagar, obviously. Because he also can't drive 55, but I don't know. Sammy Hagar, me, I don't know where I'd put me on that. So anyway, thanks for joining me here on the program. Also, quick shout out again to Bryce. I mentioned him a couple of weeks ago. He is the listener of this program who listened to the entire show and like the podcast from the very beginning all the way up till now. every single day from start to finish. He binged the entire show, and he pleaded with me not to dox him on the air because he doesn't want his friends to know that he listens to the show. So Bryce, don't worry. I'm not going to tell anyone that you listen to the show, but I did want to let you know that we haven't sent out your Automotive ADHD care package yet. And the reason for that is because it's not done yet. You see, I think we really needed to put something special in this care package, not just the earplugs. There's a trophy. It's a custom trophy. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be amazing. I've got someone working on it right now. It's extravagant. It's over the top. So anyway, that will go with the earplugs as well as a few other things. So hang tight a little bit longer. We will get that sent out to you. Now, by the way, if you do want to follow along with the show, check it out. YouTube, Facebook, Spotify. You can catch it on video too. Spotify does video. And if you're watching on Spotify, go ahead and give the show a 6-star rating. Of course, if you're catching it here on the radio in Southern Colorado, continue to do so. Don't touch that dial, as we like to say in the business. Now, I promised you I would talk a little bit about Jeep, and I would talk a little bit about General Motors for two very different reasons. And Jeep has had this recall. They cannot win, man. They cannot win. The 4xe Wrangler I have talked about for basically a month straight, with the exception of last week, because Jim Miller guest hosted for me last week. He did a great show, by the way. He talked about how used car prices have hit an all-time average high. $50,000 is the average. That's not like the median or the middle price there. I know I'm great at math. That's not that's the average price now of a new car. So, wow. Anyway, go listen to that show. Speaking of the podcast, you can catch that on the podcast. But Jeep has, they've done it again. They've done it basically 4 weeks in a row, a new recall every single week, which is just mind-blowing. And it's with the same vehicle, the 4xe Wrangler, which I sung my praises of the 4xe Wrangler. This is their way of getting back at me for saying nice things about the 4xe, apparently. And I this is what I get. This is absolutely what I get for that. And this comes by way of Car and Driver. So now I want you to guess the problem. So first, they had software updates that were bricking a hybrid control module for the drivetrain. Then they had issued a recall for that. Then the recall didn't work, so they issued another recall. Then the Jeep started catching fire, so the battery started spontaneously combusting. So they issued a fix for that. It didn't work. The battery still caught fire. So there's still another recall for that. Now, and by the way, with those Jeeps catching fire, chief engineer at the radio station, Ross, bought one. I'm not parking next to him in the parking lot anymore. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm like avoiding his Jeep like the plague. But anyway, the thing is, the next recall now, Jeep is recalling, according to Car and Driver, 112,859 4xe Wranglers that might have, drum roll, sand in the engine. Yeah. I bet you didn't guess that one. Actually, you might have guessed that one. I don't know. Anyway, foreign material, sand in the engine, likely from probably the casting process, I would imagine. They're not saying specifically what it is, but generally you don't want sand in your engine. That is typically a bad thing. So it's going to wreak havoc on basically any bearing surface in that engine, any bearing surface, rod bearings, main bearings, cam bearings. It's just going to eat that up, and it's going to be terrible. And that's what's happening now. A bunch of these are affected. 2023 to 2025 Grand Cherokee 4xes, which have the same, the Grand Cherokee 4xe has the same drivetrain. And that's 34,000 of those between 23 and 25, and 76,000 Wrangler 4xe models built between 24 and 25. So, they can't win. I don't know it's not been a good month over there at Jeep. I'll tell you that. Though, if they are going to replace, I guess, batteries in so this could actually work out good if you're an owner of one of these, like Ross, the engineer for the radio station, is. This could actually work out in your favor. You see, and I was talking with Ross about this in the hallway at the radio station, and he's like, well, if I get a new battery under warranty, that's great because my Jeep's already got 50,000 miles, so I just get a new battery for free with 0 miles on it. So actually, in a way, that could work out, right? And that's related to the battery issue, which is causing them to catch fire. And then there could be sand in the engine, so you get a new engine. So in a weird way, if you get lucky, I should say if you get lucky, because as long as the Jeep doesn't catch fire, this works. If it catches fire, then this doesn't really work. But assuming you get lucky, it doesn't catch fire, Jeep replaces your battery, your hybrid drivetrain battery under the recall. And then you go, oh no, I have sand in my engine. The engine grenaded. And then they replace the engine, assuming they fix the sand problem. It may take 2 recalls for them to fix the sand problem because every recall they've had, the initial fix hasn't worked. We'll see. But this could, in theory, lead to you, if you are a enterprising 4xe owner and you want to have a completely brand new drivetrain under a recall, this could work in your favor. So, I mean, as long as you're not too worried about it catching fire, I guess you can rack those miles up. Rack them up. Put a ton of miles on there knowing that you're going to get a new drivetrain and that your Jeep might either grenade the engine during that period or the hybrid drivetrain might catch fire, or both. I guess worst case scenario is both happens. But then again, if you have the issue with the software updates, then your Jeep isn't actually running and driving because the software updates bricked the Jeeps. So I guess you don't have to worry about that problem. So I guess you got to weigh your options. Which problem do you have? And then I guess, go from there. So also, I got a couple minutes left here to talk about this. I may have to carry this over into a bonus edition of the show. But General Motors has been having a really nasty breakup with Allison Transmissions. And you may have heard about this. Allison Transmissions, of course, is a well-known manufacturer of transmissions. They make a bunch of them. They've got a good reputation, especially in industrial and heavy equipment. And a while back, General Motors partnered up with them to provide transmissions for their heavy-duty trucks. And this kind of comes after a wave of performance hit the heavy-duty truck market 15 years ago in the early 2000s into the 2010s. It's just a performance war between Dodge and Chevy and Ford, who can keep cranking those torque numbers up in these heavy-duty trucks. And the transmission, you may find, if you're a heavy-duty truck guy, that the transmission is one of your weak points, frankly. And if it is one of your weak points, then the transmission may very well give out before the rest of the engine does. And General Motors is now officially breaking up after this long relationship with Allison, who was providing these transmissions. Now, I learned something interesting. I'm not a heavy-duty diesel guy, right? And the reason for that is because Toyota doesn't make a heavy-duty diesel truck. I guess I'll start becoming a heavy-duty diesel guy as soon as Toyota does that. But having said that, a lot of folks really like these big trucks. They got a lot of stuff to tow. They got things to move. They use them on the job site. And they're expensive. Let's not beat around the bush. They are really expensive these days. And it just, it goes to show that there's some interesting things happening behind the scenes. Because did you know this? This comes by way of Ezra Dreyer at Cart and Driver. I didn't even know this because I'm not a diesel guy. But even though these Duramax trucks say Allison Transmissions on the side, they're not actually using Allison Transmissions. It's just a badge. It's just a nameplate. Can you believe that? I didn't realize that. So the transmissions are often made in-house by GM, and the partnership was just branding only. It doesn't make me want to buy a heavy-duty truck for $100,000. I'll tell you that much. So I want to continue this into a bonus edition of the show. So if you're listening on the radio, jump over to the podcast here in a little bit. Jump over to YouTube. Remember to subscribe there. We're going to keep this discussion going. You're listening to the Automotive ADHD Show. I'll catch you on the air right here next week.